start our webinar, please let us all welcome Division K Director, Distinguished Toastmasters, Toastmaster Edralyn Paul Gascon.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. As Division K Director, I officially open this webinar. Okay, fellow Toastmasters, let us welcome our host for tonight, Toastmaster Rafiq Ahmed.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster Ed, our Division K Director, Toastmaster Edralyn, for giving us the opportunity for hosting yet again another event with another world champion of public speaking. Today's event is about engaging the audience as a public speaker. Without further ado, I would like to present to you all the 2015 World Champion of Public Speaking from District 79, Saudi Arabia, Distinguished Toastmaster Mohammed Qahtani.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for having me, and it's an honor and pleasure to be speaking to you guys from Division K. And the topic I'll be speaking about keeping your audience engaged while you speak. I promise I'm not going to take much of your time. Do it quickly, inshallah. And at the end, if anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to help. Now, we got used in Toastmasters to speak from 5 to 7 minutes. And when you speak from 5 to 7 minutes, it's easy for you to keep the audience engaged for that long. The problem is if your speech is going to be longer than that, 10 minutes, 15, half an hour, sometimes even like an hour. Imagine you're giving a keynote or you're giving some training, and you're going to be the only one speaking for a very long time. Humans don't have that much of attention span. And you've noticed it. You've been there yourself. You're attending a lecture, and halfway through, you're already reaching for your phone, you're playing a game, or you're texting a friend, or maybe you're chatting with the person next to you because you lost interest. Even if the lecturer was a very good speaker, even if the topic is really good, at the end of the day, you're still a human being. You cannot just keep focus for that long of a time, unless the speaker was able to grab your attention every now and then. So how can we do that? So let's start with the first 5 seconds of your talk. You have to do something, it's called the hook, that will get the attention of the audience right away. One of the mistakes that you could do as a speaker is start by, hi, my name is so-and-so, and today I'll be talking to you about so-and-so. This is the regular introduction that people got used to. And after a while, you've heard it so many times, you already lost interest. 5 seconds at the beginning of your speech, do something that will get the audience on the edge of the seats, something that will make them listen to the rest of your talk. Now, you can hook your audience in several ways. You can do it by a question. And this is done so much in Toastmasters. I'm not a fan of it myself, but you can still do it. So ask your audience a question. The first thing that you say before you even introduce yourself starts with a question. Have you ever been in love? Have you ever hated someone to the fact that you really want to kill them? You know, that kind of intriguing question. The second way that you can hook the audience is by a shock. Now, a shock could be two things. Could be an act that you do on stage that will shock the audience. Something that I did in my Power of Words when I started to put a cigarette in my mouth. Or the shock, it could be a piece of information that will shock the audience. For example, imagine if I just took the stage and I said, ladies and gentlemen, ever since I took the stage until now, 5 people have died from smoking. So it's a piece of information that shocks the audience. Or you can do it with a quote. Again, I'm not a fan of it too, but you can still do it. Now, why I don't like to start with a quote? If you start with a quote of someone else's, it's like you're telling your audience, I need to bring someone else into my speech just to, just to keep you guys engaged. However, it's a valid way that you can start can start your speech. Or you can hook your audience with a high tone of voice. Now, this is useful if you're going to be speaking, for example, in a conference, and your speech is at the end of the day. And you know that your audience have been there for a very long time. They're tired. Some of them are sleeping. So you might start by, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. So raise your tone of voice at the beginning. That will get the audience's attention. So this is the first 5 seconds of your speech. Now they are on the edge of the seats and they're listening to you. What do you do next? Allow me to ask you this question. If I started my talk by saying, ladies and gentlemen, ever since I was a child, I was raised by my grandmother. She's 88 years old. Sweet and gentle lady. Now, if that was my start, for example, what do you think is going to happen at the end of the speech? I know what's going through your minds. She's going to die. Yeah, she's going to die. She's going to cry, all that. Now, why do you think that? Because I gave up some key information right at the beginning. She's very old. She took care of me ever since I was a child. So probably she's going to die at the end. So I gave up the story too soon. Now it became predictable. This is what's called a frame. After you hook your audience for 5 seconds, for the next 30 seconds, circle around your topic, but don't tell me your topic yet. Keep me guessing, because that will keep me interested. So don't give me your topic right away. Just circle around it, but don't tell it yet. Now, when you circle around it, you have to say something that will relate eventually to your topic. It's like what I did in my Power of Words speech. I said, I gave a bunch of false information, and the audience already heard the title of the Power of Words. He's talking about speaking. I mean, like he's talking about smoking. I don't see the connection. And then later on, I told you that I was able to convince people that smoking is okay by using some words. Now I see. So this is called the frame. Now, keep in mind, the attention of the human is always low. So you might have caught my attention with your hook and your frame, and now I'm with you for the first minute, 2, 3, and then I started to lose attention. How do you get me back? If you're going to be speaking about any topic for more than 10 minutes or 15 minutes, make sure you inject at least 2 or 3 stories, because 2 things people love to hear when it comes to speaking: stories and humor. Inject more than 1 story in your speech, a story that relates to the topic that you're speaking about. And when you're telling me the story, don't make it so obvious that I know how the story is going to end. There has to be a climax. There has to be a twist. You know, all the things that we learn in Toastmasters. Another way that you should do to keep your audience engaged is humor. A rule of thumb that I follow when I do my speeches is I have to inject a piece of humor every minute of my talk. So if you're going to be speaking for about 30 minutes, you should have at least 30 jokes in your speech. And it has to be scattered in a way that they're not all crammed up at the beginning or crammed up at the end, but scattered evenly around your speech. When people laugh, they want to listen to you more. So make sure that your speech is have enough humor, not too much, because you don't want to come out as a clown, but you should have, as I said, per minimum 1 joke every minute of your speech. Now, if humor is not your thing, if you're weak when it comes to humor, to making jokes, that's not an excuse. Take your speech, your draft, and seek a person who's really good with humor, and ask them where you can inject humor in your speech, and seek help from others. When it comes to speaking, we all have weaknesses and we all have strengths. My weakness is words. I'm a terrible writer when it comes to writing speeches. So I seek people's help in that regard. Another way that you can always keep your audience engaged, if you start to feel like you're losing your audience or they're not paying attention much, ask rhetorical questions. Now, a rhetorical questions is when you ask a question and you do not expect the answer. Have you ever been that kind of questions? So every now and then, when you feel like you're losing your audience or maybe they're not paying much attention to you, ask a rhetorical question, even though you're not getting an answer. But the human brain always reacts to a question with an attention. So when you ask me a question, even though I'm not answering it, I'm paying attention to you. Now, if you're speaking in a workshop, for example, and you are interacting with your audience, Make sure that you do not engage your audience for a very long time. I'm sure you guys have been through that. Have you ever been in a lecture or a workshop and the speaker asked a question? Do you know what's the #1 cause of death in the United States? Anybody? You? Yeah, you. Come on. What? Smoking? Anybody else? Diabetes. Okay. Anybody else? Oh, high blood pressure. Anybody else? What is it? Car accidents. Yes. Okay. Anybody else? Now, notice that this is taking too long. And you're gathering so much answers because you're waiting for the answer that you want to give. Now, this is dangerous in 2 ways. First, you're dragging your audience too long, just waiting for people to give you answers. And now we lost interest. We just say, okay, just give us the answer already. Secondly, a lot of people have given you so many answers that do not match your answer. And then at the end, they said, actually, you're all wrong. The #1 cause is so-and-so. What you did there is you insulted your audience. It's like you're saying, all your answers, they don't mean nothing. I want my answer to go there. So if you think that you're not going to get the right answer from your audience, make the question a rhetorical question. Do you know what's the #1 that, do you know what's the #1 cause of death in the United States? I'll tell you. It's so-and-so. So you ask the question, but you didn't wait for the audience to answer. When you engage your audience, yes, people like to be engaged, but if you drag it too long, this could be a fatal thing to your speech that, okay, we lost interest. We're waiting for you to give us the answer, and now it's taken too long. Another interesting thing that you should keep in mind when you're speaking is this. Don't tell your audience something that they already know. If I'm attending a lecture or a speech, and I know the title or the topic is texting while driving, or the dangers of using your phone while driving. If you as a speaker came out and you start to tell me of how many car accidents happened last year, how many people died because of using their mobile while driving, you know what's going through my mind? I know all of that. So what else you got? You're not enriching me. You're not adding any new information to me. Now, this could be very hard for you as a speaker to come up with something that you know the audience do not know. So be careful. Your topic, see the points that you want to kind of talk about in your speech, and make sure that you're not going to say something that you know your audience already know or think that you're going to be speaking about. You have to be shocking. You have to always introducing a twist in your speech. I'll give you an example. If I have to come up here and speak to you about the danger of the coronavirus or COVID-19, I know that you guys right now are thinking, okay, he's going to tell us, you know, the death rate is higher than the other diseases. This disease is infectious, is spreading a lot faster than the influenza and all the other diseases. So if I brought this information up, I'm not adding anything new to you. So I have to go and do my research and come up with some new information that you guys have never heard before. Study the body language of your audience. Always remember, your audience comes first, then you as a speaker come second. And when you speak, you always have to scan your audience and study them. If you see a lot of people doing this, or doing this, or this, that means you're boring. The blame is not on the audience. The blame is always on you. You might think that you're a good speaker, but look around. Nobody is listening to you. You're boring your audience. So you might have to do something about it. Change. The best thing that you can do is change your tone of voice. If you're speaking in one tone, then maybe raise it a little bit. Or maybe you need to drop your voice like I'm doing right now. So always look around the room and notice if somebody is not paying attention to you. If a lot of people are now on their phones, that means there's something wrong with the thing that you're speaking about. Maybe it's time for you to give them a break, if you are allowed to give breaks during your talk. One thing that you can do if you notice that people are paying attention to you, however, one person, two people are not paying attention to you. Now, you could just ignore it and say, okay, everybody's paying attention to me. But keep in mind, if somebody is on their phone while you speak, somebody else in the audience might see that. And when they see it, they intuitively start to grab their phones and do the same. And all of a sudden, somebody else is doing the same. So it's like a virus that spreads around. So you need to deal with those people who are not paying attention to you. And the best way that you can do that is, while you're on stage, walk 2 steps in the direction of the person who is not paying attention to you, and change your tone of voice. The person will automatically feel, okay, something is different now. He will look up, he will see the speaker approaching, so he will drop their phone and pay attention to you. That way you are demanding the control of the stage. Because if you don't deal with it, it's gonna spread around. However, that leads me to one thing, which is very crucial. Every time you speak, remember this: there is always at least one person in the audience who do not want to be there. Always. Every time you speak, there's somebody in the audience who do not want to be there. They are forced to be there. Maybe they're there to see the speaker who's coming next, not you. Maybe their parents forced them to attend a lecture by Mr. Mohammed Qahtani, so now they have to kind of watch it online or whatever. For whatever reason, there is always someone in the audience who do not want to be there. And that person will try to distract themselves, playing with their phones, speaking to the person next to you. And yes, you might do the whole approach and change your tone. But if you tried with a person more than once, and that person still does not pay attention to you, is it worth it to lose the entire audience just because of one person? This is something some speakers do. They think that they should get the attention of everybody. So when they notice that somebody is not paying attention to them, they actually ignore everybody and just focus on that person. Come on, pay attention to me, please, like me, love me, please. And yet they lost everybody just because of one person. Do not lose your audience just because somebody does not pay attention to you. Always keep in mind, there's always somebody in the audience who do not want to listen to you. So these are some tips to keep your audience engaged. Speak about something that you are passionate about, something that you are knowledgeable about. When you speak about something that's not your area, that's not your forte, the audience can tell. Maybe you just Googled some few stuffs and then you just stood up in front of the audience and start speaking. And that will make them lose the credibility in you as a speaker. Pick the topics that you're really good at, the topics that you're excellent at, the topics that you have tried and succeeded with. And whenever you lose your audience, remember, they're just human. Nobody can pay attention for a very long time. However, it's your job as a speaker to bring them back. Add stories, add humor, change your tone of voice, be very animated on the stage. And if none of that works, then maybe the material that you have needs to be reworked on. Give them a break, ask them to come back and try again. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, distinguished Toastmaster Mohammed Qahtani, for giving us those excellent tips on engaging the audience. Now, I think these are the nuts and bolts when it comes to retaining and maintaining the audience attention. Thank you so much for that. We will now open the floor for questions. If our audience members have questions and you would like to ask directly to DTM Mohammed, please raise your virtual hand. And those of you who are camera shy and who would like to just post the question, we'll open the chat, public chat open now. You can post the question there and I'll ask on your behalf. All right, so the floor is now open. And I have, all right, to begin with, Let me now invite our first reactor to give us the feedback on the session and to kickstart the question and answer round. To do this, may I now invite Toastmaster John Todorovic to please take the stage and please give us your reaction.
Good evening, everyone, all across the Toastmasters community. It's interesting to hear somebody of a high level talk about something that I love the most, and that is engaging the audience. Thank you, Mohammed, for sharing all these thoughts about engaging the audience. I fully agree with your statement about the 5-second hook. I always do my best to engage the audience as early as 5 to 10 seconds, whether it's some form of a question, not necessarily. I agree with you about going into the shock or some startling statement, because I've listened to a lot of speakers who are typically starting with regular questions, have you ever, and raising the hand, and it's becoming too monotonous at the start, as well as the quotes. I always highly recommend people to stay away from quotes unless they're your own. So I started creating my own quotes nowadays and use them if necessary, but not at the beginning of the speech. So I fully agree on the shock, and then keeping them guessing within those 30 seconds. I'm already jumping into the keynote speeches, so even if it's just the 30 seconds, in general, framing the audience in a sense so that they don't necessarily keep guessing all the time, but that they are anticipating what comes next and what comes next, so that you can keep them kind of on tip of their toes. What are they going to do further on? I love the points about infusing the humor. That's one of my challenges. I don't want to say weaknesses, because I'm fairly engaging with my friends, and I realized that that's how I should engage my audience as well, because I thought that I need to have this comedic act or to become as proficient as stand-up comedians to be able to infuse humor in my speeches. And I found that the best way to do it is just to take simple life examples, especially on the topics that I love, like leadership and communication, and convert them in a sense that I can use that to re-engage the audience in some way of humor. Another thing that I do agree with you is not to engage too long and to tell the audience something they know. It's super challenging nowadays, isn't it? To give somebody a new knowledge that they haven't heard about yet. On that point, I always agree that you should definitely inquire about the audience that you're going to listen to. It's challenging sometimes to find that out, especially if it's a large group of people. When it's a smaller group, 50 to 100 people, it's fairly easy to find out if it's a company. But when it's a broad variety of people, you definitely need to talk to an organizer to find out what are their points and how are they actually going to interpret your speech. And the last part about the scanning the audience, the body language, that's something that I have been really working hard on in the past 2 years. I've been trying to make my conversations with the audience. I mean, the speeches, I don't want to call it a speech anymore, because it's a discussion. Even though they're not responding, I believe it's a discussion. It's a communication, some form of communication in a two-way street. So whether they're going to re-engage with you in somehow, especially if they're doing their body language is not responding to your message well, I always do something going to startle them back. And one thing that I did before, I tested it out and it works really well, especially to the point where you were indicating that if somebody's interrupting or somebody's doing something that you don't want, I kinda stop speaking. Not for too long, but I will just stop speaking. Not abruptly, but I will finish my sentence and I will stop speaking. And I will kinda look towards the direction of the person or persons that are either interrupting or looking at the phone or something, and that's gonna redirect people into looking at them, and they will realize that something has happened, and they will raise their posture, and they will realize whatever is happening that you should do next. Which brings me to the conclusion of this reaction of some sort. I love that you have shared and confirmed my thoughts and beliefs. I'm super thankful to hear that people are really straying away from the negative connotations of professional speaking, because it is my life's mission to share my knowledge and to do that professionally to the best of the possibilities. Which brings me to the first question that I would like to pose to you, and probably open the floor for the rest of the people to ask you further. One thing that I'm always curious about is re-engaging the audience with some form of hook. I typically put it in a perspective of reinterpreting what I said for the past, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes, reformat into some kind of hook, whether it's a question or a startling statement, and then reconnect it to the next subtopic. On short speeches, I agree, it's fairly easy to do, but I'm veering towards 20-minute speeches and like half keynote and keynote speeches, and I do also coaching, team coaching sessions. So what would you recommend for professional speakers to do to use the stories and have some form of connecting tissue between the two stories to make them relevant to each other and yet re-engaging with the audience?
Like when I speak for more than half an hour, I tend to look at it as 5-minute speeches that I stitch, kind of together. And you can do the same thing too. However, as I said, yes, you need to find the connection between, the first story and the second story. If you don't have a connection, if you don't have a really smooth transition, then it looks like you're forcing it. It's like you're forcing the story in just to make it fit. So bring in 5-minute speeches and find how can you connect them? And the connection could be as easy as one sentence that will take you from this speech to the next speech in a way that make it run smoothly and yet create a transition that makes the audience feel, okay, he's done talking about point number 1 and now he's going to point number 2. So treat your 20 minutes or 30 minutes talk as a collection of 3-minute speeches or 5-minute speeches and find a transition between them. That's something that I cannot help you with because it has to come up from you. You're the one who's coming up with the material, but it should not be abrupt. Like you shouldn't just be just telling one story, then you stop, and all of a sudden you jump into a different story.
Thank you very much for answering that. That confirms what I thought. And with that said, I would like to return the control of the proceedings to Toastmaster of the day, evening, Toastmaster Rafi.
Thank you, Toastmaster John, and thank you, distinguished Toastmaster Mohammed. Mohammed, just a small request. For some reason, your video has tilted on vertical mode instead of horizontal. You might want to turn that around again.
Okay, because my phone is about to die, so I'm connecting it to the charger. But okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you are on the correct frame right now. Excellent.
All right.
We have one question here. The first question was raised by distinguished Toastmaster Nazir Al-Qasim, all the way from District 79. DTM Nazir, if you hear me, please unmute yourself and go ahead with the question.
Oh, okay. Do you hear me? Fine.
Yes, man. Yeah.
Yeah, Abu Abdullah, I always like to use humor, like you say. It's good to engage people, but sometimes we are criticized for using other people's material. You know, we are using humor, but we are always students of humor. We know we cannot find things from our own life and create it because we are not comedians or comics. So what do you say to those people who are competing in this today's environment of online contests?
Well, it's a big no-no that you do not steal someone else's jokes or take someone else's work. Yes, that's a big no. You should not be actually even attempting to do that. Now, some people say, well, everything that's funny or every joke that I could even imagine has already been spoken about. True. However, you can say it in your own way. So if someone is making fun of, I don't know, for example, traffic, how long the traffic is, and you saw a joke like this in one of the stand-up comedy, I don't know, for example, you can see how he formed the joke. And just use the techniques of forming the joke and you can form your own. So it's not stealing someone else's work, it's learning from them how they come up with it, but you still have to make it on your own. And humor could be found anywhere. Our problem is we do not keep our eyes and our minds open to everything that's happening in our everyday life. Every time you walk outside and you notice how people interact with each other, there's always something there that will make you laugh. And like, remember, whatever makes you laugh will probably make other people laugh as well. Just be careful not to be like offensive or like offending anybody, because a joke that might be humorous to you might not be digested well with other people because it might be affecting their race or affecting their like beliefs or affecting their sex or like whatever.
Thank you. Thank you, DTM Nazir, for asking that wonderful question. And thank you, distinguished Toastmaster Mohammed. We have also one other reactor who would also like to react to the presentation and also have a question posted to you, DTM Mohammed. Can I request now Toastmaster Ryan and Cabo to please take it forward from you?
Thank you, Toastmaster Rafiq. Speech champ Mohammed, do you have a degree in psychology?
No, I don't.
Because it seems like you've given valuable insight in terms of the psychology of how audience think during presentations.
Thank you.
Whenever you put out a phone, whenever you ask questions and then you tell them that it's not correct. And I saw that you are a great respecter of time of your audience. I noticed that. You gave a promise that you would not be taking much time, and you really delivered that promise. You provided a timeline wherein how you budget the time and the insight that you give, you inject humor at least every minute of your presentation. I love that. I would like to go to my question now that we're transitioning to video presentation. It would be nice to read the body language of your audience, but because of the present situation, we are now in the video presentation, and especially in the speech competitions. Now, I think the challenge of engaging the audience has become more challenging. How, as a speech champ, what is your advice?
I would say you're asking the wrong person, because just like you, I'm new to this area as well. I don't like speaking on camera because I really need the audience in front of me in order to kind of build on their emotions and build on their energy and see the thing that they enjoyed or not. But like one of the things that you can do in Zoom, which I do if I'm speaking on my laptop, like usually if you're speaking on Zoom, automatically the cameras or the full screen comes you as a speaker. I don't want it to look at myself. So like what I do is I have it on a view where I can see as many of the audience as possible. At least that gives me a sense of what is the reaction of the people in front of me. So I feel like it's kind of like I'm speaking to an audience to a degree. Again, I don't look at myself. I don't like to see myself when I speak, but I like to see what is the audience's reaction in accordance to me. Now, I do agree with you that you might not actually tell from an audience who are watching you online if are you engaging them or not? I mean, even now, I'm not even sure if I'm engaging you guys or you guys just waiting for me to just be quiet so you can just leave. But what I would do is write your speech and rehearse it like in your home with your family. At least you can still have your family like at home. And imagine if your family is the audience who's going to be watching you like online, and you can take them as a sample of an audience and see if your speech or if your talk is engaging enough.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
By the way, thank you for your speech in the World Championship. It really impacted me a lot in my life and as a Toastmaster.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Ryan, and thank you, DJ Mohammed. We have another question coming from one of our attendees, Toastmaster Sarah. Toastmaster Sarah has asked me to ask the question on her behalf. DJ Mohammed, here's a question from Toastmaster Sarah. She would like to know, humor is not her forte, so what would you suggest for her to grow this skill to be more engaging as a speaker?
A lot of people think that humor is something that you are born with, and for that, I am a good example for you guys. I am not a funny person, and I think a lot of people who are watching me here today who have known me for years can attest to that. I am a very boring person, but humor is something that you can learn. And I found out the best way that to learn humor is to watch stand-up comedy. I watch an enormous amount of stand-up comedy, not to steal jokes, but to kind of study how the comedian came up with the joke. If you notice in stand-up comedy, they just bring in some like mundane events, something that could happen to any one of us, and yet they they find something funny to bring out of it. So you watch it as a way for you to understand the techniques on how, on like how to do that. Then try to implement it on things that are happening in your own life. And if humor is not your forte when it comes to speaking, I would suggest also to seek a mentor. I'm sure in your area or in your club or in your division, there's a person who is known to be a humorous speaker, a person who can write jokes really easily. Write your script, then take that draft to that person and say, where can you find an area where you can inject humor in? And take it from there.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Toastmaster Sarah and DTM Mohammed. We have also one more question coming from Toastmaster Rika. Toastmaster Rika, you can unmute yourself and please go ahead with the question.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Thank you for being with us tonight. Now, my question is, if, for example, you are to deliver a speech on the topic of COVID-19, what do you think is a best introduction for 5 seconds? And what can be a humor that you can inject on with such topic? Thank you.
Well, I can start it in several ways. So I can start with that question and say, ladies and gentlemen, when do you think this whole COVID-19 went? Or I can start with a shock and say, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, we're all gonna die. So this could be my hook. And then I can dive into the topic. However, as I said, I'm not really in the medical field. I'm not a doctor. So that's why I won't speak about that topic unless I have research to come up with information that not a lot of people know. I need to present you that they haven't heard.
Thank you. Thank you, Toastmaster Rika.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you also, DT Mohammed. We have a hand raised from Toastmaster Panos Korel from District 109, Greece. Please unmute yourself and go ahead with the question.
Thank you. Thanks to the organizers. This is incredible to be able to listen to all of you directly and sharing, and a warm hello from Greece. The whole world stands united, and thank you so much. Mohammed.
Yes.
I had the pleasure and opportunity to see your keynote speech at the Global Toastmasters meeting that was organized by District 41 and Gagan. And I want to share with you that the most striking and endearing fact about your speech was your conversational style. So put into my words from my experience so that I can arrive to my question with a natural transition, as you said. I felt that I forgot that I was listening to a speech. You made it easy for me to focus because you were sharing. And for those of you that have not had the opportunity to listen to that, Mohammed launched straight into a story about a doctor, but he made it clear that it was a family story. And then it was not revealed where the question was headed towards. However, the story itself was engaging because I was looking for the catharsis. I was looking for the element that would be the key for all of this to make sense to me.
Yes.
So here's my question. How did you do that? So you launched straight into, let me just recap, okay? So then I will not interject again. You launched straight into the story, while most of us want to start with a sort of background, perhaps being afraid that the audience will not be listening to us if we don't serve some things on the platter directly. Then you had this conversational style without any exaggerations, but still I was right there. I was in the room with you. And in the end, you added a twist and I don't want to reveal the twist. I'll leave that up to you. You added a twist that made me feel that I got paid back for the attention I was giving you. You see what I mean? And I got the message. And even more so, I remember it. It's been a month now. I remember it. So
thank you.
How did you do that? Please enlighten me. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, as I said earlier, if you give up your topic early in your talk, then I lost interest. So you have to circle around your topic, but don't give it up yet. Now, yes, for that speech, I kind of dragged it for a very long time, for about 3 minutes until the message came out. But I know that people love to hear stories, and if nobody wants to hear abstracts or points or whatever. No, tell me a story. And when you tell me a story, don't tell it, show it. Make me look like I'm looking at it, not listening to it. So if there's a dialogue in your story, then act the dialogue. Do this and then do that, so people can see two people talking in front of you. And the story itself has to be related to a very powerful message at the end. Yes, we all want to tell our own stories, the thing that happened to us, because we think our life is interesting. But always ask yourself, if I'm telling this story, is someone who's listening, are they going to get something out of it? Or it's just because of my sake, because I want to share my own story? Remember, your audience come first, then you as a speaker will come next. So yes, start with a story, an engaging story. Don't give up the topic yet. Make me just guessing where is this going to go. Then in your conclusion, link it all together. Why are you telling me the story? What is the lesson behind it? And then that's how you conclude.
So the twist was not revealing the why in the beginning, as I understand it now. It's starting with why. But when the why came at the end, it all made sense to me. So look at that. This might be counterintuitive advice, but I tell you, that day you hooked me, but not just in the beginning, for the whole duration. So again, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you
so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that lovely question. Very enthusiastic fan of yours, DTM Mohammed, I would say. Toastmaster Panos Corel, all the way from Greece. Very interesting question. All right, we had a follow-up question coming from one of the attendees, DTM Nazir Qasim. If you're still hearing, you can unmute yourself and please do the follow-up question that you had.
Oh, thank you. I was holding so other people have questions, but since you allowed me, thank you, Rafiq Ahmed. Champion Mohammed.
Yes.
These days, everybody is talking about Corona, even in the online contest. Sometimes becomes boring. So do you recommend that those contesting these days, now it's in the hot Saudi Arabia, everybody's contesting, they mention the Corona, or you drop it? What do you think?
Actually, a funny story that happened, I think about 6 years ago or 5 years ago. And I think you, DTM Nadir, were there as well. And we had a table topic, contest on the division level. And I do remember the question is, who's the most important person who have changed your life? And the first table topic speaker comes in and he said, that would be my dad. And then he started to speak about his dad and how his dad died and whatever. The next speaker, my dad. The next speaker, my mom. The next speaker, my dad. And everybody had the same answer, my dad and my mom. And then this lady came in and it was her first time to compete. And she said, my young son did the craziest thing. And then she started to tell us this funny story, but then she actually explained how laughter in life can be something that will actually help you to go through your life. And she actually won. Now, why she won? Because she went against the stream, against the norm. Now, if you come up on the speech contest and you speak about the Corona and COVID-19 and how all humanity are united against whatever, again, it's the same topic again. It's like a person who answers the question with my dad.
I already think that you're going to speak about your dad. So you're not telling me something new. So yes, I do agree with you. Let's try to stay away from it and go against the norm, go against the stream, and bring a topic that nobody expects us to bring.
All right, excellent question, DTM Nazir, and very wonderfully answered by our world champion 2015. We have one also request from Lester Roxas. If you can hear me, please unmute yourself and go ahead with your question.
Thank you, TM. Hi, TM Mohammed. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, TM Mohammed. I have been a Toastmaster for less than a year, and I have really been very interested, and I really work hard in matters about international speech. In your material earlier, you mentioned about the hook, the frame, and how to effectively engage to the audience. Now, what I would like to learn more is the ending of my speech. I would like to learn from you, do you have any specific styles or techniques in ending or in doing a powerful ending for your international speech?
Yeah, two things that I always add in my endings. First is this, if you remember in school, at the end of your math class, the teacher gave you homework so you can do it at home. And the reason behind that is when you go home and you do it, the information will stick in your mind a lot more. And the same thing could apply also to speaking. At the end of your speech, give your audience something to do, something they as individuals can do. They could do it, they could not do it. I mean, like they might do it, they might not do it, but at least when you give them something to do, it's like you're giving them homework. And when you give them homework, the idea sticks in their mind a lot more. I'll give you an example. If I'm speaking about the danger of texting while driving, I can end my speech by, ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you this. When you go home, please open your glove compartment and put your phone in there, because there is no phone call or text message that's worth your life. So, I mean, what I did here is I asked the audience to do something when they leave the hall. Lastly, the last statement of your speech is the most powerful one. It could take you days just to craft one powerful last statement. Do not let your last statement be, and that's it for me, thank you. That's not a way to end. End with a very powerful last statement that will make the audience think, wow, that was amazing.
Oh, thank you for that, Mohammed.
Thank you, Toastmaster Lester, for that wonderful question. Thank you once again, DTM Mohammed. All right, I have a question, DTM Mohammed, and
Yes.
this is a question I commonly hear from many people. And although I know the answer to this, but I would like you to share it with all our attendees here today. Many people ask me, is it true that DTM Mohammed did not actually win at his district the same year that he won the championship? Is this true? And what is the story behind this?
Yeah, actually, 2015, I came in second place at the district. And only 2 weeks, I think, or 3 weeks before the finals, the first place winner dropped out, and I went and I took his spot, and I was able to actually win. And that was actually the first time ever that I made it to the international convention. And from the first time, alhamdulillah, I was able to actually win. And the lesson that I want to give you in that is, it's a chance that came up to me, even though I thought to myself that I'm not ready. I actually was about to back out myself because I thought I'm second place in my district and now I'm competing against first place from all over the world. I'm just gonna make a fool out of myself. But some chances in life will come only once. And if you let it slip out of your hand, they may not come back again. So if those chances happen to you, like whether in Toastmasters or even outside of Toastmasters, even if you don't think you're actually like ready, just say yes. Learn along the way, but don't let the chance slip away from your fingers.
Wow, excellent way of putting it. So basically, you're the advocate saying to us that jump off and then grow your wings on your way down. Excellent thought. Excellent thought. Okay. We have one more question coming in from Toastmaster Ronald. Toastmaster Ronald, please unmute yourself and go ahead with the question.
First of all, thank you very much. I would like to congratulate Division K for organizing this global event. I trust that this fresh brand of leadership, the vibe that this fresh brand of leadership can really kickstart our district to be more relevant within and without. Second, I would like to thank distinguished Toastmaster Mohammed Qahtani for sharing your learnings with us in the midst of this pandemic. Now, to the question. On the topic of using the mechanism of shock to hook the audience, how would you know that you're stun and hook the audience and not paralyze them, or worse, area or the contest area?
Well, that's where the practice comes in handy. You don't just write a speech and just go and give it right away. You test your speech on different kind of audiences and see, is the shock appropriate, or as you said, is the shock too much that will paralyze the audience? And actually, when I was practicing the power of words and my shock was with the smoke, I had conflicting ideas. A lot of people said, this is too much and it's a bit offensive and people might actually drag you off the stage. But other people, and the majority, said, well, actually, it's very interesting. And we found it like really catchy. So I trusted the majority of the audience that they thought that the shock was well enough that it will not, as you say, dramatize your audience.
A follow-up question, please.
Yes.
In case of doubt, should I resolve conservatively or should I resolve liberally?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. But I would say to be conservative is to be safe, because you never know. You might actually end up offending someone in the audience by taking by taking a risk.
Okay, thank you very much.
My
thank you very
advice
much, sir.
is try to test your speech on different kind of audiences first, and then you can make up your mind.
Thank you,
very much,
Toastmaster
sir.
Ronald, for a very inspiring message for all of us, and also DT Mohammed, excellent answer to that question. We have one question coming from Toastmaster Gladys. You can unmute yourself and please go ahead.
Hello, Toastmaster Mohammed. Yes, you were interesting to listen to, and your experience is obviously very broad. I was thinking, as I even looked at this panel of cross-cultural people, how do you adjust your shocking stories, your hooks, your illustrations, and especially your humor when you get outside of what's more normal for you?
Yeah, that's what I said. That it's important that you test your speech on a different kind of audience. Yeah, I would recommend that you.
How do you do that?
Well, when I was preparing for my speeches, especially the one that which I took to the international, I spoke for an audience that was all male. Then I spoke for a different audience that was all female. I spoke for an audience of older people, of younger people, people who speak English as a native language. For example, people from the US and from Canada and from States, and people from my own country, just to make sure that all the jokes works. They all actually get the jokes. They're not offending anybody. And the message itself could carry out across all cultures. When you are writing a speech, make sure it's a universal speech, which means it could be understood all across the world, and even within Toastmasters, and even sometimes outside of Toastmasters. Because if you win the world championship, just make sure. I just want to just remember, when you win the world championship, your speech will go viral, and it will go on YouTube, even outside of Toastmasters. And if you have something in your speech that only Toastmasters could understand, when a non-Toastmaster audience member would listen to it, then there will be a big question marks in their mind. What did I mean by table topics? I don't know what that is. You know what I mean? So make sure that the speech could be understood even outside of Toastmasters as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Toastmaster Gladys, for a very intriguing question. Thank you, DJ Mohammed. We have one more hand raised, Toastmaster John. You have a follow-up question, I believe. Please go ahead with your follow-up question, John Todorovich.
Yes, the follow-up question relates to engaging the audience, but from a perspective of a body language of the speaker. I already asked the question to other people, and I always ask that everybody that I can that's in professional speaking career or motivational speaking or coaching or lecturing. If you are trying to rehearse something, especially in Toastmasters when you're prepping for championship speeches or district level speeches or regional speeches, people often become too over-rehearsed when it comes to their body language. How do you avoid looking like you really intended to come to the center, move to the left side, move to the right side, and staying more conversational, as I mentioned in my first question, so that the audience feels that it's just a story that goes on and on?
What I would recommend for you is test your speech with a friend of yours or a couple of friends who are not even in Toastmasters, who have not been in, I mean like a Toastmaster club. Why? Because the problem is sometimes when we are in the Toastmasters, we tend to craft our speeches to be, how do I say this, like Toastmaster friendly, which means I need to use the entire stage from left to right. I need to alternate my voice and so on. And sometimes we do it so much that we feel like we have to move across the entire stage. And sometimes we don't. So test your speech with people who are not even in Toastmasters and ask them, does the speech look fake? Does that speech made, I mean, like if the speech looks, like you're trying to act it out too much, and get their response. Because as I said, your audience could be Toastmasters or could be a non-Toastmaster. Don't aim for a speech to only fit for the Toastmaster environment. Aim for it to fit even outside of that.
Thank you, Toastmaster John. Thank you, DT Mohammed. I have now one question. I would allow our division director, Toastmaster Edrelin, to ask a question, please. Toastmaster Edrelin.
Okay. Hi, Toastmaster Mohammed Qahtani. This
Hello,
is my
boss.
question. My question is, how important is accent of speaking when you reach the World Championship?
Honestly, it doesn't matter. If you can pronounce the words correctly, and that's why also I would recommend that if you get to that international level, you get a person, try to get a mentor who is a native speaker, because they have an ear for how the words has to be pronounced. Accent-wise, I don't think it's making any kind of a difference. I won, even though I'm from Saudi Arabia. 2014, the winner was from Sri Lanka. 2016 and 17, they were from Singapore, and they had an Asian accent, and they still won. So the accent really does not make a factor, as long as the words could be pronounced correctly and the audience could they could understand what you're saying.
Thank you, Toastmaster Mohammed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Division K Director, Toastmaster Edrelin. Thank you, DT Mohammed. There's a message coming forward from a Toastmaster from Singapore. It's Toastmaster Kim. Toastmaster Kim says, "Hi, Brother Mohammed. Greetings from Singapore. Keep inspiring and keep sharing." So that's a message all the way from Singapore.
Hi, friend. How you guys? I really miss that guy. Please send him my regards. Thank you, Kim, for the message. Really appreciate it.
Okay. And we have one anonymous question. The person asking the question would like to keep his name anonymous. The question goes like this. Please let us know what is the ideal number of stories to be injected in a single contest speech in order to be more effective.
A lot of people will tell you, I'm going to tell you the secret recipe for winning a speech. I'm here to tell you there is no secret recipe. I used 3 stories and I won. Other people used 1 story, they won. Other people used 2 and they won. There isn't a limit on that. However, your speech, it should not be crammed up with so many stories that the audience lose track of which is which. So whatever you're comfortable with and you can fit within 5 minutes or 7 minutes and still the audience can still follow, then go with it.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. There is I see, just a moment. I saw a hand raised from one of the participants. Toastmaster Nakhash. Toastmaster Nakhash, you can unmute yourself and go ahead with your question directed to DT Mohammed.
Thank you so much. Greetings, Toastmaster Mohammed Qahtani.
Thank you.
This is Hussein Naqash from Baghdad Toastmasters Club, and I am really inspired by your motivations, and I was inspired by your speeches. Basically, your speech was the thing that made me go into Toastmasters. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, thank you so much.
I have a very small question.
Yeah.
Basically, choosing the type of your speech, and sometimes most people go for a chronological storytelling thing, and sometimes the people go for some sort of an informative thing. So I would like to ask this kind of a question, because this made me how to realize what kind of a speech that I should deliver. So is it always that putting a speech as an informative or putting a speech as serious? Because sometimes not all people are able to make some sort of hilarious or humorous speech. And most of the people go with tragical and like a very bad condition that happened to them in their life.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, though, like most of the people are good in some types of speeches and other people are not. So how can I determine the best kind of a speech or the best type of speech for myself?
Again, you just answer your own question. Say the speech that you want to say, regardless of what other people actually gonna do. Don't speak just because of you, speak because of what the audience wants to hear. Again, you might give an informative speech and still very powerful. You might give a hilarious speech that's filled with comedy and still be powerful. You might give a very sad story and still be powerful. And you might give any kind of speech and still be powerful. The key here is one thing. When you speak, and I want you all to just remember this, please. When you speak, go to the stage hoping that somebody out there will get something from your talk and they could have a better life. It's not because you want to be famous or you want to win or you want to be seen. It's always about them. I want to ask you to do this every time you take the stage. Ask yourself, imagine that right after you speak and you're done, you're gonna die. And ask yourself this a question. Is it worth to say? And if it is, how would you say it?
Thank you so much for that. I'll take this kind of recommendations. Thanks.
Thank you, Toastmaster Nakhash and DT Mohammed. There's another question here coming all the way from District 91, South UK.
All right. How many questions left, by the way?
Okay, our timer, Toastmaster Nathan, can you please tell us?
We have 15 minutes before our green flag to be flashed. 15 more minutes before our.
Okay, let's put it this way, DT Mohammed. We will be taking questions, but we reach a point where there are no more questions. I will let you know. We've come to the end of the session.
Okay, I'm asking because my phone is about to die, so I might actually take you to my car. But go ahead.
You can do the tilt if you like. In order to charge your phone, we will bear with the tilted screen.
That's okay. So what was the question?
All right, a question coming in from District 91 UK from Division K Director. And the question goes like this: If it is a 7-minute speech, when do you need to start to talk about the main message in your speech? So basically, he wants to know, in a 7-minute speech, at what minute or at what time during his speech do you need to start talking about the main message, the reveal? When should it come?
Well, see, when you think about it that way, then you look at it. You're actually you're looking at a speech as if it's something that you could, how I said, okay, it's not a mechanism. What I mean by this is this: last year's winner, Aaron November, he told a story when he was in India attending a wedding, and the story went on for about 4.5 minutes, and throughout the entire time, I still didn't know what the message is. And the message came right at the end of his speech. The speech was powerful, entertaining, and the message itself was powerful as well, and he still won. So again, there is no rule of thumb. You can dive in right at the beginning. You can wait 1 minute or two. You can even get the message right at the end of your speech, and it will still work.
Okay, excellent. So that answers the question. We have 2 more questions coming in. There's a follow-up question from the anonymous person asking the question again. And the question goes like this. What will you do? Again, Aditya Mohammed, this is up to you whether you would like to answer this or not. The question says, what will you do if you sense that the result of a contest has been politicized or has been rigged? And let's say that there is an obvious manipulation of the result. What do you do about it?
There is nothing to be done about it. You know, the thing about the speech contest is you win or you lose based on people's opinion. You might have been able to please the entire audience, but 5 judges or 6 judges, for some reason, thought the other person will actually have to win. And yes, this might hurt, and I've been through that too. There was times when I thought I should be the one who won. But then I wanted to remember this: if you're competing or if you are in this competition just to win a prize, just to win a title, then I'm here to tell you, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Please stop competing, because you're going to hurt yourself, and after a while you're going to quit, and you're going to hate Toastmasters, and you're going to think this whole thing is rigged, and I don't want to be part of this anymore. Well, then why should you compete? Every level of competition, or the club, area, division, and district, you're going to be speaking to more and more people. More and more people will get a chance to listen to you. This is a chance that Toastmaster gives you that you would not get anywhere else. How would you gather a lot of people just to listen to whatever you have to actually say? Toastmaster gives you that opportunity. So ask yourself, what message would you like the entire world to hear? Use this opportunity to speak to as many people as possible. If you win, congratulations, we'll clap for you. If you don't, there's always next year. I'm kind of sad that as a world champion, I'm not allowed to compete anymore, because I have a lot of ideas for speeches in the contest, but I'm not allowed to. At least you guys can still do that.
Thank you, Aditya Mohammed. We have a question coming in from Toastmaster Julius. Toastmaster Julius, please go ahead.
Hello, good evening, Toastmaster Mohammed. Yeah, my question.
Hello.
Yeah, so my question is, from your experience, the world champion, how do you strike a balance between spontaneity in your speech delivery, while at the same time observing the rigors of public speaking, such as structure, content, eye contact, gestures, and etc.?
What I would recommend for you is start by writing a draft. Write a draft of your speech by hand. Then read it 4 or 5 times. That way you get the flow of the speech in your mind. And then that's it. Go on stage, and you don't have to give your speech exactly like you wrote it. And this is a very bad mistake a lot of people do, which is they write a speech and they say it word by word. If you just memorize the speech and you make a mistake on stage, or you just forget one of the words, it's gonna screw up your mind. You should not memorize your speech. Write it down, read it a few times, then go on stage and speak it. You already know the flow, the words will come with you, and that's where the spontaneity will happen.
Thank you very much. Very helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Julius. Just to add from the last answer from the previous question, and DT Mohammed, maybe you can attest to this. I know that there are several times that you did not make it past the district contest, and the speakers who won actually did not make it past the regional contest. So in a simpler way to put it, those of you who feel that losing might discourage you to think that the contests are rigged, the decision is not in your favor. But I would borrow a line from one of my mentors who says that if it's your time and your speech is that good that you don't leave any shadow of doubt in the minds of the judges, you will go all the way. So
yes.
I hope I'm making that answer very clear from DT Mohammed. All right, DT Mohammed, there's one question also. Someone would like to ask this question, but they have forwarded it to me. Question goes like this: what do you do if you suddenly forgot your speech? What is the best recovery that you can apply?
The best recovery is you stop speaking. Don't look up, because if you look up, it looks like you're trying to remember something. Then you are giving the indication that you forgot your speech. Don't do that. Stop talking. Look at the ground. Walk. Change where you are on stage. And while you're walking, try to recall what you actually forgot. If you ended at the other end of the stage and you still don't know what your next line is, just jump to the very next thing that you remember. Your audience will never know that you made a mistake or you forgot something unless you tell them or you show them that you did. Nobody knows your speech but you. So jump to the very next thing that you remember and carry it from there.
All right. Thank you, DT Mohammed. I think we've come almost to the end of our session, but before we end, I have one question for you, DT Mohammed, if you allow me to ask. Okay. The question I wanted to ask you is this, that those contestants who are competing right now in their divisions, in their districts, and are going ahead past the district contest in the regionals, do you think that this gives them a new stage where they need to come up with a new speech? Because the question, if I would appropriately put it, is this, that many of us coming from the comfort zone of our own districts, when we cross this comfort zone, do we come up with a new speech, or do we stick to the same speech and believe in the message and go all the way until the end in the finals and then change our speech? What would be your advice to those doubts that a speaker may have in his mind?
Well, if your speech is strong enough that it took you all the way to the district and you won, then it's probably a good speech which you could take actually into the international stage. However, if the speech is not a universal speech, which means it's only a speech that could be understood within your own culture or your own society, then you need to come up with a different speech. You need to come up with a speech that's universal, everybody could relate to and everybody could understand.
Excellent. So your World Championship speech, DT Mohammed, was that your district speech?
Yes, actually it was.
Oh, wonderful. Excellent. All right, we've come to the close of our session. I would like to thank all the attendees and those of you who were brave enough to put the questions forward to DT Mohammed to take the wisdom home from his message, his journey. Thank you so much for that. Thank you to our Division K Director, Toastmaster Edrelin, for giving the opportunity to everyone across the world to connect. And we peaked at about 75 attendees here on Zoom itself. And we are also streaming live. We have a lot of attendance on live as well on Facebook. Thank you so much. And DT Mohammed, I know for a fact that you have a very busy schedule, considering even out of the Zoom platform, even when we were offline, you had a busy schedule. And now online, since it's open to everyone, I'm sure you're overwhelmed, but thank you for welcoming us all the way from District 75 in the Philippines to connect to you in Saudi Arabia. On that note, I would like to give the control or the floor to you, DT Mohammed, for your closing remarks before we end the session.
At the end, I would like to thank you so much for hosting me. And honestly, I always say that Toastmasters is the second family to me. And even though with my busy schedule, I always find the time to speak to my brothers and sisters from all over the world. Thank you so much for having me. And I really hope that I get to speak in the Philippines in person after this whole COVID-19 is over. I would love to actually go there like physically and speak to you guys.
Excellent. When that happens, when the opportunity does come, the person that you need to get in touch with will be our Division K Director, Toastmaster Edrelin, who will be more than happy to host you. Toastmaster Edrelin, I would like to hand the control back to you for your closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Mohammed Qahtani, for gracing our event tonight. It's an honor and privilege for us here in Division K to have you for our 3rd episode. So, fellow Toastmasters, let's give Mohammed Qahtani a virtual round of applause for a wonderful presentation. And I hope all the tips that he had provided us tonight will help us in writing winning speeches. And for those who are competing for the district this coming May 1, I hope these tips will help you in your competition. So once again, fellow Toastmasters, I would like to invite you all this coming April 22 for our 4th episode. Our speaker will be Toastmaster Mark Hunter, the same time, 6 p.m. So, okay, I would like to ask everyone to open your cam and let's have a picture taking. Okay, I'll just. Okay, wait. Is everyone open? Okay. Ready? For the first page. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Next page. Okay. Still waiting for the others. How about? Okay. Okay. Second page. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Third page. Okay, for the third page. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters, for joining us tonight. It's a pleasure to have you all. And have a wonderful night. God bless everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
So as Division K Director, I officially close this webinar.
Bye.
Thank
you.
you,
Bye-bye.
Director
Thank you.
Ed.
Thank you.
Very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank
Congratulations.
you,
Director
Toastmaster
Ed.
Rafiq.
Thank you.
Thank you and stay safe,
Bye.
everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye. Stay safe, everyone.